Hello, everyone. My name is Mahini, and I'm so glad that you're here today. And a huge, warm welcome to our express session on economics. I know that some of you are joining us a little later in the semester, and you might be feeling a little bit of pressure, a bit overwhelmed, or even a little stressed about catching up. And you know what? That's completely understandable. Taking on a BCom is a big step, and life sometimes throws us some curveballs. So, first things first, take a deep breath. You've got this. This is a 1 hour video designed specifically for you. We're going to cut through the noise and get straight to the core concepts you actually need to know to succeed in your first year. Think of this as your economics super booster shot. We'll cover the fundamental ideas that underpin everything else, giving you a solid foundation to build upon. And don't worry about the nitty gritty of the assignments. Right now, we have a separate and detailed assignment video that will walk you through all the assignment requirements and give you the guidance that you need. This session is all about understanding the big picture, getting all those aha moments, and building your confidence. Now, you might be thinking, economics? Did I really sign up for economics? Am I stuck pretending I care about inflation, what the government is doing, or politics? Well, yes, but here's the thing about economics, it isn't just a subject, it's your secret weapon as an entrepreneur. Think about it. As a business person, you're constantly making decisions. What product should I sell? How much should I charge? Who are my customers? How do I beat out the competition? Every single one of these questions has an economics answer. Understanding economics is like having x ray vision for the market. It helps you spot the opportunities, anticipate challenges, and make smarter, more profitable decisions. It's the difference between launching a business with a blindfold on versus launching it with a detailed map and a compass. So get ready to unlock your entrepreneurial superpower. So, economics is essentially about how we as individuals, businesses, and societies allocate our limited and finite resources to fulfill our diverse needs and desires. This balancing act is crucial as it shapes our economies and has a direct impact on all of our lives. In this session, we'll explore some of these key concepts to help you grasp the fundamentals of economics. These concepts will provide a framework for understanding this intricate dance of managing scarce resources in a world full of choices. As we dive deeper, we'll discuss how individual and collective decisions influence our economy. And this fascinating interplay not only explains market dynamics, but also enhances our appreciation of choices that we make every day. Next, we'll delve into how individuals and firms behave within our economy, exploring the three central questions and the different branches of economics. Let's embark on this journey together to better understand the forces that shape our world. So let's look at the behavior of individuals and firms. They are a central element in economics. This area raises some essential questions like what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Briefly, we'll look at how each of these questions is answered by the economy. Because at its core, economics is about managing scarce resources. So we divide it into two main branches, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics specifically looks at the behavior of individuals and businesses, while macroeconomics focuses on the broader economic trends like inflation and economic growth. Think of microeconomics as the examining of the trees, whereas macroeconomics is about studying the forest. Both perspectives are equally crucial, and comprehensive understanding of both are required to understand economics. Now, remember, it's not just about numbers, it's about understanding how society functions and how we make choices. And this understanding helps us navigate everything from household budgets to national policy decisions. Now, I want you to keep these questions in mind as we cover these other concepts because they will form the foundation of your economic thoughts. They are the starting points of your journey to understanding how societies actually operate. Now, let's dive a little bit closer into what economics truly is. While economics is often linked with wealth and finance, it's essential to understand that it's not solely about money. Economics is, in fact, very social at its core. It's the study of people, their choices, and how we look at how the things we've made and produced and how we move them around and distribute, how these goods and services are used or consumed. In defining economics, it's crucial to see it through the lens of how we examine human behavior and societal patterns. This perspective will help us better understand the world around us, from simply buying decisions to complex national policy decisions. So, as we continue, keep in mind that economics is about choices and connections, not just numbers and graphs that they reflect. So, economists wear many hats. They evaluate programs, study human behavior, and explain social phenomena. Often, their roles can range from being educators and advisors to consultants, generally impacting areas from household decision making to government policy. Now, why is economics important? Well, it provides us with the tools to understand historical trends, which help us predict future outcomes and make informed decisions, which enhance our efficiency in our resource consumption and allocations. Think about it. Economics influences pretty much everything, from the price of your shoes to the availability of future jobs. It's not just about money, it's about making choices that affect our daily lives and, in it, by extension, our long term plans. Economics isn't just a subject, it's a lens through which we can view and understand the world. So, today, just to elaborate a little bit further, we have two separate branches of economics. You'll cover microeconomics with me and then macroeconomics slightly later on. Macroeconomics is the big picture. It's all about national and global scales. It examines production, employment, pricing, policies. It includes analyzing the country's overall economic health through various metrics like output, unemployment, inflation. We even consider things like international trade. This field helps us understand how economics impacts and grows different economies, and how government actions can either impact the economy as a whole or specific industries or even individuals. So, as on the other hand, microeconomics zooms into the individual and businesses specifically. It's about the choices they make, like bakeries deciding what pastries to offer, or your decision on what product to purchase. Microeconomics helps explain how workers, consumers, and firms interact to make decisions for the market. Recognizing these two fields gives us a comprehensive view of how the economy functions. Understanding both helps us make personally informed and societal decisions. So, when we're discussing economics, there are two fundamental concepts that stand out: scarcity and opportunity cost. Let's start with scarcity. We all have endless wants and needs, but resources available to fulfill them are limited, whether it's about raw materials, labor, or time. These resources are always in short supply compared to our desires. Scarcity compels us to make decisions about what we truly need and what offers the most value to us. This naturally brings us to opportunity costs. So every time we make a choice, we're also deciding against another option. For instance, if you choose to travel to a sporting event, the opportunity cost might be missing out on a movie you wanted to see. It's about evaluating the benefits and costs of our decisions, recognizing that each choice comes with consequences for what we've given up. By understanding scarcity and opportunity cost, we gain insight into the whole decision making process, both in our personal lives and in the broader economic context. These concepts help us prioritize and allocate our limited resources effectively. Now, let's explore these core elements in our economy. Resources are essential for inputs, for producing goods and services, and they can come in four main types. So, first, we have land. Now, that represents our natural resources like minerals, forests, and water. These are raw materials that we rely on to produce other goods. Next, there's labor, which involves human effort and skill. This is the workforce that powers industries and innovation. Next, there's capital. Now, capital is all your man made goods like machinery and tools. They are crucial to production and, most importantly, efficiency. Lastly, we have entrepreneurship, which is all about innovation and management. It's the creativity and leadership that brings the new products and new ideas to life. Now, considering these resources, we encounter a significant challenge: scarcity. Scarcity arises because our resources are finite, but our desires are seamlessly endless. So, this imbalance means that we have to make wise decisions about how we allocate what we have. And understanding these elements helps us to grasp why economic decisions are so crucial. It's not just about resources, it's about making choices about how we maximize their potential. So, as we move forward, remember that resources and scarcity are at the heart of many economic principles. So, let's see how this ties into choices we make, which involve trade offs. Now, let's look at our first principle of economics: people face trade offs. Okay, so this principle highlights a fundamental truth: we cannot have everything we want. Every choice involves making a trade off. Choosing one thing means often means giving up something else. So consider when you guys join a club, okay, you can gain valuable experiences and friendships, but you might have less time to study. Or think about a country that allocates more resources to the military. This often means less funding for some other needy project like education. These examples bring us to an essential concept called opportunity cost. So, how we specifically define it is what we forego when we choose one option over the other. Whenever we make a decision, we should consider not only the direct benefit and cost, but also the opportunity cost. Remember, every choice is a balancing act. So, as we continue to think about how these trade offs affect our everyday decisions. So, principle number two, the cost of something is what you give up to get it. So, every choice we make comes with a cost. Sometimes it's about money, but often it's about more than that. Think about going to university. Yes, it costs money, but there's also the income you forego from not working full time. Smart choices require us to consider not just the rands we've spent, but also the opportunities we pass up. It's about seeing the big picture, weighing both the tangible and intangible costs. So, have you ever made a choice that you thought was quite small, but eventually ended up having a very big impact? Remember, understanding these hidden costs can lead to wiser decisions in both your personal and your professional life. So let's keep this in mind as we explore these other economic principles. So, a third thing I want you to keep in mind is the idea that most decisions aren't simply about doing something or not doing something at all. Instead, decisions often involve small adjustments around the edges, what we call thinking at the margin. For example, consider a business that's deciding whether to produce more of an item. They'll weigh whether the revenue from selling that extra item exceeds the costs of making it. So, this marginal thinking helps businesses maximize their efficiency and their profitability. This principle is not just limited to businesses. It also informs how we as consumers decide whether we like to buy an additional cup of coffee or save the money for something else. It's a concept in many economic models and helps us explain behavior in various economic scenarios. We'll see how this ties into understanding opportunity costs very shortly. So, again, because this is a very easy multiple choice question and very often comes up in the exams, and again, a core concept in economics. So, opportunity cost is a fundamental concept. And when we talk about opportunity cost, we're referring to the value of the best alternative that we gave up when we made a choice. So, for instance, if you decide to purchase a new phone instead of saving for a vacation, the vacation becomes the opportunity cost. We have to make sure that you understand this concept because it helps us in making informed decisions all the way down the road. By weighing up these potential losses and gains, we can better evaluate whether our choices are truly beneficial in the long run. Remember, every decision we make has an opportunity cost. So, recognizing this can lead to a strategic and more thoughtful process going forward. Now, when we considered trade offs, scarcity, choice, and opportunities or opportunity costs, we have a graph in economics that is called the production possibilities curve. So, the PPC illustrates the maximum possible production of two goods given certain resources and technology. So it helps us in understanding efficiency and opportunity costs. Each choice we make has an opportunity cost. So this is a reflection of the theory we've just covered. Now, you'll notice that on this graph that there are only two products, bacon and eggs. And there are also points labeled A through D. Okay, so these represent the efficient production levels, meaning that all the resources that we have in our economy are being fully utilized. In contrast, point E is a point inside the curve, and that indicates inefficiency. Okay, so resources are being underutilized here. Point F is interesting because it lies outside the curve, signifying an unattainable level of production with the current resources and technology that we have available. So, understanding these distinctions helps economists and decision makers optimize our resource allocation. So you can see here how this graph actually works. At point A, we as a society have decided that we're going to produce 40 units of bacon and no eggs. At point D, we have decided to produce all eggs and no bacon. And every point along the curve is indicating our choice and our opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost of receiving 30 eggs by moving from point A to point B is 5 units of bacon. Okay. So the opportunity cost, for example, of moving from point B to point C, we have gained 20 eggs. But what has it cost us? It's cost us 15 units of bacon to receive those 20 additional eggs. So this graph itself represents the scarcity in our economy because it shows us that if we are operating at point F, it is simply not possible. The graph itself shows us that all of our resources are already allocated efficiently. So all of the points A to D are an efficient use of resources. Point E, however, means that we have a lot of resources in our economy that are currently being underutilized or unutilized. And therefore, our economy is suffering from this loss. So we also have to look at technology in economics. So think about how technology transforms different industries. Okay, so it's not just about faster production, it's also about improved efficiency. Consider how AIs have made so many more people so much more efficient. So it's a game changer for everything from manufacturing to communication. Technology helps us in reducing costs, fostering global trade and connections. Technology opens doors to new jobs, opportunities, but it also poses challenges. So, industries may face disruptions. Workers themselves might find themselves adapting to new roles and trying to acquire new skills. This dual nature of technology is crucial in understanding and shaping the economic landscapes. So remember, there's always a balance between embracing technology advances and managing its impacts so that we create a sustainable economic growth. So, looking ahead, we'll see how these technological improvements affect our production possibilities and the country's standard of living. So, let's dive back into the production possibilities curve. So when you think about the PPC graph, it shows us the different ways that we can use our resources efficiently. Now on this slide, we have a few key points about technology improvements on this curve. So firstly, when we move from point M to point L, we are looking at a specific technology improvement in the production of cars. So that means that we are able to produce more cars with the same resources we have in our economy. So it shifts the curve outward at the point. Similarly, if you look at point N and the movement to point K, it indicates that we were able to achieve some technological improvement in motorcycles. Again, this enhancement means that we can produce more motorcycles with the same resources. Showing progress in both aspects is obviously a priority and great for the economy because we are producing more. In fact, we are making very efficient use of our resources. So, finally, there is the possible transition of both L and K, which represents a simultaneous improvement to both the production of motorcycles and cars. Now, these dual advancements push the frontier even further. So, you'll see a significant leap in production capabilities. So, you'll see an extension of the curve outwards to parallel both sides of the graphs are moving outwards on the axes. Now consider how these technological advancements impact our choices and production efficiencies. So have you seen examples of these industries? Can you think of anything that you're familiar with? Remember that these shifts in the PPC reflect how technology can optimize our production possibilities, which is a theme you'll see is echoed in the next slides about how our production ties into a country's standard of living. So, truly, technology, although it is interesting, and I beg you to bear it in mind, that technology is the one thing that humans create that gets cheaper as it gets better. However, technology at an economic level, on a personal, firm, and macro even level, technology has a massive improvement impact on human lives. So, the standard of living in a country is largely determined by its ability to produce goods and services. So, this is a very important principle in economics. So, the more productive your workers are and the better equipped they are with better tools, the more goods and services are available for everyone. So, this principle underscores the importance of productivity driving a nation's economic health. So countries that prioritize investments in education and technology, they tend to grow faster, enhancing living conditions for all of their citizens. There is the connection between education and technology and growth because productivity is truly the key to long-term progress. By embracing and understanding this principle, we can appreciate the role of productivity in improving our daily lives. Now, let's dive into the fundamental questions of economics that every country must tackle. We have covered them already, so let's bring them up yet again. The three economic questions. Every economy, regardless of size, wealth, or population, has to make a decision about these crucial elements. How do we allocate our resources? So these decisions boil down to these three questions. What to produce involves this typically involves choosing between essentials like do we invest in food or housing or advanced sectors like technology. The choices made here reflect the society's priorities and its needs. So, secondly, how to produce. This question touches on the efficiency and sustainability of these production methods. So, should we rely more on machines or human labor? How do we balance economic growth and environmental sustainability? And then finally, for whom do we produce? This concerns the distribution aspect of goods and services. So, do we aim for equal access to everyone, or are we going to distribute it based on income levels? So, this decision influences social equity, quality of life for all of your citizens within your economy. So these questions are central to shaping each society's economic system and determining how the resources are utilized, for who benefits from them. And as we move forward, we'll examine how these different economic systems address these questions uniquely. So, our economic systems are like the blueprints of a country's economic structure. So let's explore the four main types. First, we have the traditional economy. This is covered in chapter 2 of your textbook. So, in our traditional economy, everything is guided by customs and traditions. This type of economy is found in rural areas where people rely on age old practices for survival. A great example of that would be some native tribes that have, shunned the Western world, or um, areas where you still have tribe elders or tribes that have used traditional methods of sustenance farming and bartering systems in order to keep their society and their community strong. They are slow to adapt, and innovation is obviously quite low. Next, we have the command economy. So, here's this is where the government has a firm grip on all the economic decisions. So, all three questions are answered by the central planning unit of the government. So, they can ensure that the essential goods are the only things that are prioritized. Then you have the market economy. So, this is where the individuals shape the economy. So it's driven by supply and demand. This system thrives on innovation, competition, and empowering individuals and businesses to decide what and how to produce. And then lastly, we have the mixed economy, which combines elements from both market and the command economy, offering a blend of government regulation and individual freedom. So, this hybrid approach is designed to leverage the strengths of both systems while mitigating their weaknesses. This is the system we employ in South Africa. The US and Singapore are probably our best examples of a market economy, whereas China and North Korea are probably our best examples of a command economy. Now, remember that each of these systems has their own advantages and challenges. So, most countries adopt a mixed approach and then they tailor the economic policies to their unique needs. So, our discussion now turns to how these economic systems have influence on our daily life. So, something that affects us all, often in ways that we don't immediately recognize. So, let's start with the market economy. Now, this system offers a wide variety of choices to consumers and encourages competition amongst businesses. This competition is a key driver of innovation. So, think about the new technologies and products that we regularly see. Then, when you look at the command economy, here the government comes up with all the production decisions, which can limit consumer choices substantially. However, they do focus on the essential goods like healthcare and education. Finally, if you look at a mixed economy, which aims to strike a balance, they allow personal choice while providing government services, which both affects availability and the cost of goods. So, this balance is crucial as it influences not only our purchasing decisions, but also the broader economic landscape. So, we have the idea that was coined by Adam Smith, and it's called the invisible hand. And this concept is truly fascinating because it explains how markets can efficiently organize their economic activity without the need for central control. So imagine a bakery in your neighborhood. Okay. It doesn't bake bread out of the goodness of its heart, it is aiming to make a profit. Yet at the same time, customers get fresh bread just the way they like it. This is the beauty of the market system. It aligns individual interests and societal benefits. Now consider how prices play such a vital role in this process. They may help match buyers and sellers by signaling what people want to businesses and what businesses should then produce. So while the businesses are acting in their own self interest, their choices often end up benefiting others as well. Have you ever thought about how this everyday purchases fit into this larger system? So remember, while each player in the market is looking out for themselves, the invisible hand helps ensure that their actions contribute to the greater good. So, at the heart of a thriving market economy is competition and free enterprise. This dynamic duo of engine economic processes, they are, while competition is like a friendly race where businesses strive to win over customers by enhancing quality, reducing prices, or introducing innovative products, it's this healthy rivalry that helps keep the market vibrant and responsive to our needs. So, free enterprise is the freedom of businesses to operate with minimal government interference. It's the playground for entrepreneurs and the place where creativity and efficiency flourish. But these are not the only drivers of innovation. It also offers us as the consumers a wider variety of choices and better products. So whenever you enjoy a new product or a great deal, remember it's the spirit of competition and free enterprise at work, making our lives just a little bit better. Remember, the main advantage in this market is that your factors of production are owned by your citizens. So any deals that get made have to be made by the owners of the factors of production, who are the households. We decide what is produced. Um, we vote with our money, and the companies decide how to produce it, and then the distribution falls to the mechanisms of price and income. On the other side of the spectrum, we have a command system. So now governments can sometimes improve market outcomes. So while markets are powerful, they are not flawless. Okay, there are real challenges. So that lies in determining the right moments and methods for the government to actually intervene. This ensures that their intervention is enhancing rather than hindering market efficiency. Typically, what happens is that governments are primarily concerned with equity, and firms and businesses are concerned with efficiency. So, regulating pollution, on the other hand, okay, is to protect our environment, breaking up monopolies to ensure fair competition, and supporting people in poverty to foster a level of equality. These are interventions that reflect a situation where government action can lead to better outcomes for everyone involved. So remember that the goal is to strike a balance between intervening just enough to correct the market failures without stifling the innovation and efficiency that the free market naturally encourages. Okay, so at this point, I have a little ice activity. It is just a quick check in to make sure that you've understood everything from chapters one, the toolkit in chapter zero, chapters one, and chapter two before we move on to chapters three and four. You can scan the QR code, or if you'd like to go to the link at app.briskteaching.com/show, you'll be asked to enter that simple 6-digit code and you'll be able to do the ICE activity. On to chapter 3. So you'll probably see that this is a question that typically comes into your assignments as well as your exams. This is what we call the circular flow of economics. Now, it's quite simple, really. What you have are, in actuality, you have 5 market participants. But for microeconomics, though we need to know them, and you'll see this in chapter 3, that it is actually, your learning unit 3 is split between chapter 3 and 4. So we do have government, businesses, households, foreign sector, and the financial markets as market participants in our economy. However, For the purposes of microeconomics, we are predominantly concerned with businesses and households. Okay. Those are our market participants. Then we have two markets. We have the factor market and we have the product market. Now, the factor market is a market where we can buy and sell factors of production. Now, remember, our four factors of production are labor, land, capital, and entrepreneurship. Those factors of production are in a market or mixed economy controlled and owned by the household, the market participant. They, however, cannot go directly to a business and say, I'd like to sell my labor, land, and capital and entrepreneurship. So instead, we go to a factor market where we meet with businesses who buy our factors of production at a cost. Okay, that cost obviously is a cost to the business. That money flows into the factor market and then flows to the households in the form of income. So wages, rent, interest, and profits. We are specifically receiving remuneration for our factors of production. You'll see the alignment there. In return for labor, we receive wages. In return for our land, we receive rent. In return for our capital, they provide us with interest, and our entrepreneurial abilities are rewarded with profits. Now, households take that income and we have to be able to spend it on something. So that brings us to our second market, the product market. The product market is the market where businesses go and provide their goods. So the goods and services that are produced in the businesses are then provided to the product market. We then meet the businesses as individuals, as household members in the product market, and we then have consumption expenditure. So we give them money in the form of consumption expenditure, and they provide us with the goods and services they've produced. It flows through the product market, and before it gets to the businesses, we flip the name to, instead of being consumption expenditure, to being revenue to the businesses. So they provide us with goods and services, and we give them revenue for the goods and services in return. So as you can see, this diagram illustrates your whole circular flow of income, expenses, and production throughout the economy. There are only three economic flows you need to be concerned about, and I've just mentioned them: income, production, and spending. And now we move on to our final chapter, and then you'll be all caught up for everything that we've covered this semester. So supply and demand. Now, they are foundational concepts in economics, and it's all about balance. The principle revolves around how the availability of goods, or the supply, and the desire for them, or demand, intersect to determine how much we pay for that product and how much of that quantity or how much of that product is provided to the market. So you will notice that on every demand and supply graph, your y-axis will always have price and your x-axis will always be quantity. So first, think of supply as how much of the product the market can offer. This depends on a various number of factors, like the cost of production and the availability of those resources. Then there's demand, which is essentially how much consumers want the product, and that's influenced by things like consumer preferences and income levels. The magic happens when these two forces interact, where supply meets demand. That's where market equilibrium is reached. So the prices stabilize and the quantity of goods traded is now optimal at market equilibrium. We'll delve deeper into the specifics of supply and explore how it changes with price in just a moment. So let's look specifically at the law of supply. The basic idea here is that there's a direct relationship between price and quantity of the product that the producers are willing to supply. The first key point: as prices rise, producers see that there's an opportunity to earn more. So they're motivated to supply more of the product. That's a natural response in the hopes of maximizing profits. The second key point, conversely, is when prices fall, so does the incentive to produce more goods. So products then or produce decreases because producers might not be able to cover their costs or even make a profit. So they tend to supply less. This fundamental principle helps us understand how the market behaves, and it helps us also predict changes in supply based on price fluctuations. It's one of the backbones of economic decision making for producers. We'll also see how this relationship is expressed through a formula. So here you'll see that there is the direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. The formula itself is indicating that quantity supplied is a factor of the price. So, simply put, as the price of a product increases, producers are willing to supply more of it. The law of demand, on the other hand, that stipulates that as the prices rise, people tend to buy less of the product. Now, remember, when we are looking at it from the point of view of demand, we are looking at it as a consumer. When we are looking at it from supply perspective, we are looking at it as though we are producers. So, from a consumer perspective, if something gets more expensive, we naturally want to buy less of that product. And our willingness to buy the product is depicted in the law of demand. The law of demand can also be represented in a formula in the same way that the law of supply can. So here we have the formula: Q, quantity demanded, equals price as a factor. So this tells us that the quantity demanded, which is QD, is a function of price. So there's an inverse relationship between price and the quantity demanded. So as the price of a product goes up, you know what happens. It means that our demand tends to decrease. Conversely, when prices go down, our demand typically goes up, assuming that everything else stays the same. And that term, everything else stays the same, is given by ceteris paribus. So, this foundational concept in economics helps us understand consumer behavior in the market. It's really fascinating because it looks at how, in real life, how your decision making in the grocery store and how can impact the economy as a whole. Because our individual demand curves are rolled up into an aggregated demand curve for the market. Now, let's delve into the concept of market equilibrium. So, again, a fundamental principle in economics. So, this occurs when the quantity demanded by consumers equals the quantity demanded by producers. Supplied by producers. So this balance is crucial because it's the where the market prices stabilize. It's what we call the equilibrium price. This is the sweet spot where buyers and sellers are both satisfied. So imagine a balanced scale. When the demand equals supply, the scale is perfectly level. If demand or supply changes, the equilibrium then has to shift, and the market adjusts to find a new balance. So, why does this matter? Well, understanding market equilibrium can help us predict how a market will react to changes in either supply or demand. We're going to explore how to calculate the equilibrium price and the quantity in the next slide. So here we have it, market equilibrium. So first we have our demand function, which you guys can see here. This equation tells us that as the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases, which aligns to our law of demand. Next, we have our supply function. Okay, so this tells us that the quantity supplied increases, indicating a direct relationship between price and quantity. Now, to find the equilibrium price, we set the quantity demanded equal to the quantity supplied. And this gives us the equation that you'll see at point 3. So by rearranging this equation, we can solve for equilibrium price. That helps us figure out what the equilibrium quantity is because we can substitute back into the same formula. Remember that we will typically ask you to draw this out much more regularly than we will ask you to remember this specific formula. However, you will be provided with a formula sheet in the test or in the exam at least. So, not to worry, this information will always be readily available to you. The most important thing is to understand that when there is a shift in price, that you will have a movement along your curve. So the curve itself does not move to left to right. It is the same curve. You are simply adjusting price and looking at where the new quantity exists. However, if there is a change in price without a change in supply to match it or a shift in demand, very often what happens is that the market ends up in disequilibrium. The market is not built to be out of equilibrium. It must find a buyer for every seller, a seller for every buyer. So it will continually drop the price, increase quantity, drop quantity, increase prices until it finds its new balance, its new market equilibrium. It's all about this balancing act between supply and demand, and it's crucial for understanding how these prices are set in the market. It also ensures that the amount of consumers that are willing and able to buy equal amounts of what producers are willing and able to sell at a particular price. So keep these equations in mind as we move forward into these different market behaviors and see how changes in supply and demand can shift this equilibrium. Now, finally, let's explore these 4 key market behaviors that influence equilibrium. Okay, so the first 2 behaviors involve supply. Supply can either decrease or it can increase. On the demand side, you have the same balance. Demand can increase or it can decrease. These shifts in demand and supply can significantly affect the market equilibrium, altering both price and quantity. Understanding these behaviors is crucial because they help us predict how factors that we experience in the market will influence the market itself and how the market participants will react. Will also help you predict things like economic policies and perhaps even understanding changes in consumer preferences over time. You will need to understand that there are different factors that impact demand and supply. For example, things that producers are concerned about are predominantly cost of production, um, things like exchange rates, things that impact their ability to sell to the market. On the other hand, determinants of demand are things like consumer preference, the number of people in a household, income changes, things that impact our ability to purchase the goods and services we need or want. I'd like to finish up with our last ICE activity. Again, you can scan the QR code or you can enter the link and just put in that 6-digit code. This will just help you consolidate everything we've covered in this quick 1 hour video. If you guys have any questions for me, please get in touch. My email address is moprather@varsitycollege.co.za, and I'm always willing and able to answer your questions. I try to get back to you within 24 hours, but within 48 hours for the latest. And I wish you everything of the best in economics. Remember that there are a lot of different things that we will cover. It is very important that you make reference to your module guide just so that you cover the most important key concepts in economics and don't waste too much time on the almost more random theory. First, let's get down to the core of economics and then we can elaborate from there. So, there are many parts of the book, especially from chapters 1 to 4, where we isolate out some information which isn't as relevant now as other aspects of the textbook. So I would ask you to just keep an eye on your ARC site and I'll keep you updated. I will meet with you once a week, so I look forward to having more involved chats. And all the best, and I hope you guys are feeling much more prepared for the semester ahead. Thank you for everything and your time and attention, and I hope I haven't bored you too much. Have a lovely afternoon further.